And welcome to Infinite Sports Playoff NFL Divisional Weekend Show. Terrible intro, as always. I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder along with the great Ben Upson. And on today's show, we are going to recap the games from Wildcard Weekend, Super Wildcard Weekend. We'll give our thoughts on what happened within those games. And then we will dive right into the four games for this upcoming weekend. So, to my co host, Ben, how are you doing on this fine Thursday evening?
Kenny, glad to be back yet again for another playoff show. A lot did go down on Wild Card Weekend, and we have four fantastic matchups to preview for this divisional round weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So let's do it, my friend.
All right, so let's get right into. Well, first we'll recap the games from last week. So we'll start off with the Bengals and the Raiders. So the Bengals, they won their first playoff game in I think 31 years. They beat the Raiders 26-19. Joe Burrow had a pretty good game. He passed for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And Derek Carr on the other side, he had 310 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. That was at the end of the game as the Raiders were trying to go down and tie the game. The Bengals offensively, they looked pretty good. The Raiders, their defense really isn't that good. We did talk about it, when we were previewing these games, how these defenses really weren't the strengths of these teams, and we felt there was going to be a decent amount of points scored probably, and that was the case. Joe Burrow, like I said, had a pretty good game. Jamar Chase, they just could not cover him. And the Bengals, they get the win. Raiders, they dealt with a lot of adversity this season, but their season unfortunately ends for them. I think the Bengals, they're a team that can definitely beat anybody in these playoffs. Obviously, I think that their passing game is the strength of the team. Joe Mixon has had a great season. I definitely think this team can beat anybody. As for the Raiders, they do fall a little bit short. I was looking for a bigger game out of Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. We really didn't get that. They were talking about it on the pregame show that whoever can run the football better is going to win this game. Josh Jacobs did run the ball pretty well, but the Raiders did fall a little bit short. And, penalties were a problem for the Raiders in this game. They got the ball down to the one with Josh Jacobs, and unfortunately there was a holding penalty, and that run got called back. Raiders had to kick a field goal. So the Raiders could have been going down the field at the end of the game to tie it with a field goal rather than, trying to score a touchdown to tie the game. So that's really my thoughts on that game. Bengals move on to take on the Titans. And like I said, when we get done recapping all these games, we'll preview the divisional games. So, Ben, what were your thoughts on Bengals Raiders?
Yeah, it was a good tone setter, I think, for the weekend. The Saturday 4:30 game usually isn't, the most appetizing on the weekend, but this was actually ultimately one of the better games of the 3 days of action that we saw. I will say Joe Burrow does continue to really impress me. He found CJ Uzama and Tyler Boyd for his 2 touchdowns on the afternoon. Like you said, 244 yards. Let's not forget, coming into the wild card, he threw for 525 yards against Baltimore, 446 against Kansas City in the final 2 games that he played. He obviously rested, against Cleveland in Week 18. But I've been impressed with what Joe Burrow has done down the stretch to help this team to, the AFC North title and, one of the top 4 seeds. And this was perhaps likely the only playoff game that they're going to host, barring any unforeseen circumstance. Actually, no, it will be the one playoff game that they host because the Bills and the Chiefs are the 2 and 3 seeds. But still, no matter what, it's great for the city of Cincinnati to finally get a playoff win, their first one in 31 years, mind you. And they really have to be proud of what this Bengals team has accomplished, especially down the stretch when it really mattered the most. And I mean, look, I understand, especially a lot of Raiders fans out there, they're going to be looking at the inadvertent whistle that was, blown on the pass to Boyd. And it looked like Burrow might have gone out of bounds. We saw it on the replay, though, that he did end up just
he wasn't even close.
Sideline.
Well, at least for me, I didn't
true.
think it was any. I don't know what the referee saw on that play.
I mean, it was a bit of a close call. He was clearly inbounds though, but he was
Yeah,
tiptoeing that sideline. I kind of understand it. I don't know what the ref was seeing though.
yeah.
You're right about that. And like I said, it's going to be a subject that we're going to hear about for a good while. But honestly, I don't think it really had a massive impact on the outcome of the game. Especially because at that point, I think it put the Bengals up 20-6. So at that point in time, it didn't really matter much. But still, uh, congratulations, Cincinnati, your first playoff win since 1990. They got to be feeling it, and they're going to go to Tennessee now this weekend with a good chance.
Yep, so well said there. So now we'll move on to the Patriots and the Bills, which was the nightcapper on Saturday. And we both had the Patriots winning. We thought this was going to be a great game, and it was not a good game whatsoever. Bills dominating this game 47-17 over the Patriots. They did not punt once in this game. Josh Allen had a great game, 308 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. They ran the ball well, 174 yards in total. Devin Singletary had 81 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen had 66. Their leading receiver was Dawson Knox, who had 89 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. He had a big game. Gabriel Davis had a touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders had a touchdown. Stephon Diggs had 60 yards receiving. Bills played really well. The Bills, they went up 7-0, made that first drive look really easy. And then Mac Jones looked like he was going to throw a touchdown to Kendrick Bourne, but a great play by Micah Hyde to pick it off in the end zone. And that was basically it. The Bills really never looked back. It was like they just were going up and down the field like it was nothing. The Patriots defense was awful in this game. Mac Jones had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Those 2 interceptions were kind of fluky, not necessarily his fault. He did pass for 232 yards. They didn't really run the ball, the Patriots, because they were playing catch up the whole time. Damian Harris had 30 yards rushing, Ramondre Stevenson 27. They ran the ball for 89 yards in total. Kendrick Bourne had 2 touchdowns, 77 yards receiving. Jacoby Myers had 40. Ramondre Stevenson had 33. Hunter Henry had 1 reception for 30 yards. He dropped a touchdown in the game. Brandon Bolden had 4 for 27. Nelson Aguilar had 1 for 18. Damian Harris had 1 for 7. And that was the stats for the Patriots. Their defense, though, just looked awful in this game. And the Bills, for me, I mean, they really look like Super Bowl contenders. I just feel like now that they have established a running game, and like I say, I love to call them one-dimensional. That is something that I've been saying all year. But since they have started to commit to the running game with just one running back, commit to Devin Singletary, and Devin Singletary since then has really been able to run the football well, and this team has looked a lot better because of it. I mean, really, it all goes back to the second half against the Bucs, because in the first half they did not run once with a running back, and then they were able to run the ball better in the second half. They were able to come back against the Bucs, although they did lose in overtime. They still, them being able to come back was impressive, and they just look like a better team. And obviously on defense, Tre'Davious White, their top corner, him being out definitely hurts them in the game against the Chiefs, and we'll go over that again once we, get to the divisional games. But I feel like the Bills, they definitely could go to the Super Bowl and they could definitely win the whole thing. I feel like Josh Allen is playing some of his best football, and I just feel like they're on a roll. And I think that, the Chiefs, it's going to be tough for them to stop this Bills offense on Sunday. And yeah, that's really my thoughts with that game. As for the Patriots, it was a good season for them. I mean, they looked like, their defense looked unstoppable at points during the year, but they played the Bills the second time, and it just seemed like something was off with them. We thought they were going to correct it in the playoffs, but they just really could not cover anybody. They couldn't get to Josh Allen. Josh Allen could do basically whatever he wanted to. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens next year. For me, with the Patriots, they definitely need to get a number one wide receiver. They need another wide receiver in there. And I think they got to bolster the pass rush and add to their secondary. To better their team for next year. I think, give Mac Jones another year, see what he could do. Definitely shows potential, but he was not going to be able to get in a shootout with Josh Allen. That just wasn't going to happen. So that's kind of my thoughts on the game. Ben, what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, you basically hit a lot of the good points of the game. From start to finish, it was Buffalo all the way. It's really funny too, Kenny, because of course preseason I was backing, a Bills Bucks Super Bowl, which
Yep.
is very alive
Still
now.
alive.
Still.
Yep. Still alive.
And how ironic that I decided, to turn my back on them in this wild card round and take the Patriots. Typical. Two sides of me. No, but
Yep.
their Super Bowl run is back on. I think they look like, at least right now, perhaps, the team to beat in the AFC. But I think there's another team out in the Midwest that begs to differ right now. Um, Josh Allen putting up 5 touchdowns, of course, in this game, over 300 yards. Dawson Knox, had a unbelievable catch really to start the game,
Yep.
and from that point on, let's be real. Josh Allen had 9 seconds on that throw to Knox, and it just felt like already that the Patriots were going to have to claw out of a hole, and that's exactly what happened. And they can't come from behind. It's just because it's not in Mac Jones' DNA right now. Their offensive weapons are really not as strong as I think we once thought that they were. Because of course, you can't rely on Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, and night in, night out. I mean, Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson were both great in the backfield this season, but it's about who Mac Jones has around him, and that's what the Patriots are going to have to focus on, going forward, because they're just not as shiny as the weapons that, say, Tom Brady used to have up in New England. It's just not that way anymore right now. The Patriots do have to be pleased, though, I think, overall with this season, because they did have some quality wins. I think obviously the most notable one perhaps has to be, the win against the Bills on the road when, they had, I think, was it over 200 rushing yards? Mac Jones had just 3 passes in that game.
Yep. We
Three
went
pass
crazy
attempts.
on that Damian Harris 64-yard touchdown run because that helped me win my fantasy matchup that week.
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the marquee wins. They obviously beat up the Titans, which obviously they were injured. So it's not necessarily, I guess, 100% healthy Titans. They took the Bucks right down to the wire on Sunday Night Football this year. Those are just some of the real, I think, quality wins that the Patriots can walk away with this year. Um, but yeah, from start to finish, it was all Bills in this game, and they have a fantastic draw set up for them on Sunday night against Kansas City. And like you were saying too, I'm also in agreement that I think that this team can get to the Super Bowl, because it feels like this time around they're prepared and they're organized, and I think they're going to go into KC Sunday and give them a good battle. But definitely a solid win for Buffalo all around against New England in Super Wildcard Weekend.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So now let's get into the Sunday games. So let's start off with the first game of the day, and that was the Buccaneers and the Eagles. These two teams met earlier in the season, Week 6, I believe, and the Bucks won that game 28-22. So I don't know. For me, I thought this was gonna be a close game just because there was no AB, no Godwin, no Fournette, no Ronald Jones, and I thought the Eagles could keep it close, and that was really not the case. Obviously, looking at the score, 31-15 was the final score. Eagles scored 15 garbage points in the fourth quarter. The game was basically 31-0 the whole time. The Eagles just couldn't get anything going. Jalen Hurts did not play well in this game. Threw the ball 43 times, completed 23 passes, 258 yards, passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. They only ran the ball for 95 yards with the combination of Hurts, Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, and Kenneth Gainwell. Dallas Goedert was their leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 92 yards. Gainwell had a receiving touchdown in this game. Devontae Smith, he really just was not involved in the first half, and then they finally started getting him involved, but it was too little, too late. Dallas Goedert had a couple of drops. They were just not in sync in this game, and the Bucks defense just dominated. That's just plain and simple with that. And Tom Brady dominated as well. Efficient day, 29-37, 271 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Giovanni Bernard had a rushing touchdown. Keyshawn Vaughn had a rushing touchdown as well. Those were their top 2 rushers, with Fournette and Jones being out. Mike Evans was their top receiver, 9 receptions for 117 yards and a touchdown. Gronk had a touchdown, but he was kind of quiet. He had 5 receptions for 31 yards. And the Bucks won the game. And listen, the Bucks, it's playoff time. This defense definitely was shaky at points during the season, but now it's the playoffs, and they are going to take it up a notch, and they are going to be a tough out. And when you have Tom Brady, who is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, if not the greatest, most people will say he is the greatest, and I would agree with that. Even without Godwin, without AB, this team is still very good, very talented. Now, the problem, and we'll get into it when we preview, the divisional games, is there were some injuries in this game. So they lost Tristan Wirfs, their right tackle, and Ryan Jensen, their center. So those are two key players on this offensive line that give Tom Brady the protection that he needs to be successful. And if he doesn't have those two guys, and they're going up against the defense in the Rams, which we will get into, that might be a problem, and we will get into more detail with that. But yeah, Bucks looked really good. This team can win the whole thing again. I don't care if they're missing, multiple players. You got Tom Brady. The defense is starting to get guys back. So we'll see what happens. But they are ready for another Super Bowl run if they can get to it and win the whole thing. And as for the Eagles, nobody really expected them to be here. But they got here. Jalen Hurts, he had a good season, I would say. I was kind of frustrated with the fact that Devontae Smith, didn't get the ball as much. That's one of your top playmakers. You got to get him the ball. Like, why are you throwing to Jalen Rager and Quez Watkins? Get the ball to your top playmakers. And just running the ball when you shouldn't. You got to throw the ball more. In some of the early game situations that they had, but a good season for them. I think if the Eagles can add another weapon in the offseason to pair with Devontae Smith, that would definitely help. And the Eagles definitely need help in the secondary too, because the secondary is pretty weak. And you got Darius Slay, who's your top corner, but he's on the older side. You got to get younger and get some better players in there. So the Eagles, they exceeded expectations, so credit to them. But they just ran into a much better team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's my thoughts on that game. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the same way. The Eagles were definitely, I think, a little bit more on the luckier side to be able to get into the number 7 spot in the NFC. It's just the thing, we talked about it before. Are these 7 seeds really legitimate contenders? Do they belong in the playoff picture? And that's been, a highly debated topic ever since the NFL decided to implement, the extra team. And granted, it is another football game, but at the same time, it also makes you wonder, is the quality of these games really that of a playoff game that we usually see? But, obviously Tampa is the better team compared to Philly. And we saw it, throughout that game. Like you said, the Eagles just scored 2 touchdowns late. I think the Bucks were just playing some prevent, and they gave them those touchdowns, really. I think in the end, Jalen Hurts did not have a great game. 2 picks, obviously. The 1 touchdown pass he had was to Gainwell, like you mentioned. And I think the issue here is, where was Devontae Smith? It's true. He only ends up 4 for 60 in this game. It's very bizarre that the Eagles don't utilize him as much in this offense, because he's a playmaker. That's what you said. You have to have playmakers in this league if you want to be successful. And I'm sorry, but Dallas Goedert did have a great year at tight end. But you can't be using Quez Watkins and Jalen Rager as your targets. And by the way, Jalen Rager had a terrible game on special teams on Sunday. He's been a bust of a pick.
Yeah, we were talking about it a lot. We were going back and forth
Yep.
through text about it. It was not good.
Yeah, no, a bust that they got from TCU in that draft.
They could have got Justin Jefferson. They could have.
Right, exactly. That's the guy that they've passed up on. And obviously with the redraft, you would think they would take Justin Jefferson in a heartbeat if they had the opportunity to redraft again. If we knew, we go through it all the time. But anyways, that doesn't matter now in the big picture. Yeah. Really strong win, I think, for Tampa. Brady had another pair of touchdowns. He's definitely, I think, the perhaps front runner for MVP, but it's very close with Aaron Rodgers. Mike Evans, of course, is going to be leading this team throughout the rest of the way. 9 for 117 with a touchdown. And see, the Bucks, they still have a pretty good potent offense. They still have some playmakers. Obviously, no Godwin, that they have, but they do have Evans and Gronk. And still, I think those are 2 guys that are still capable of putting up quality numbers week in and week out. And that's who they're going to have to rely on when they face LA coming in this weekend. But strong win as well for Tampa Bay over Philly.
Yep. Once again, well said. So now let's get into our favorite game of Super Wildcard Weekend, and that is the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. This game was not only on CBS, but also on Nickelodeon. I think you said you watched it a little bit more on Nickelodeon rather than I did. I watched maybe 2 seconds just to see, oh, like there's SpongeBob, like when they kick the field goal, and young Sheldon telling us what a certain flag means and stuff like that. But for this game, like Bears Saints last year when that was on Nickelodeon, that was more of a Nickelodeon game because that game was just pathetic. This game, I wanted to listen to Romo and Nance because this game was amazing. And we both picked the 49ers to win, and we were definitely really happy with that. Though it did give us a heart attack at the end. 49ers won this game 23-17. They went up 13 to nothing. Cowboys scored a touchdown with Amari Cooper. Then the 49ers were able to put up more points, capitalized on a Dak Prescott interception that led to a Deebo Samuel touchdown, and they were up 23-7. And then Cowboys kicked a field goal. Jimmy Garoppolo threw an interception. Cowboys were able to capitalize on that with a touchdown, Dak Prescott rushing touchdown. And then just a lot of stuff happened at the end. So Deebo Samuel gets a first down. Basically, it's like, oh, okay, the game gets put away, right? Then they measure it, and it turns out didn't get the first down. So then they go for it on 4th and inches. Garoppolo gets it, but they weren't set. So then they had to punt, give it back to the Cowboys, and the Cowboys went down the field. 49ers weren't playing the sideline, so then they started doing that, and then Dak Prescott, with 16 seconds left, runs a QB draw, gets it down to about the 30, the 20, around there, and they're trying to clock it, but they need the official to clock it, and the official was not there. So he finally gets down there, puts the ball down, Dak spikes it, but there's no time left. And, the Cowboys are blaming the refs for all that, and, they should have had a chance. But the big thing was the Cowboys had a lot of penalties in this game. I think they had 16 penalties. They were not disciplined in this game, and you could tell Mike McCarthy was annoyed with that. But that's on him. I mean, you got to have your team ready to play, and he obviously didn't. Another thing is the Cowboys only scoring 7 points in the first half. Okay, that's just unacceptable. So if we look at the stats here, so Jimmy Garoppolo, he wasn't really that good in this game. Did have some good throws, but he struggled a little bit. 16 to 25, 172 yards, no touchdowns, a pick. That was the one late in the game that set up the Dak Prescott rushing touchdown. Elijah Mitchell had a good game, 96 yards rushing on 27 carries and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel had 10 for 27, or it's 10 for 72, sorry, and a touchdown. So the 49ers ran the ball for 169 yards. Brandon Ayuk was their leading receiver. He had 66 yards receiving. Deebo Samuel had 38. Juwan Jennings had 29. He had some key catches in the game, even though there was only 3 of them. George Kittle only had 1 catch in this game. I don't understand why. Travis Benjamin, he had a catch in this game, 1 for 17. I can't believe this guy is still in the league. It's unbelievable. Juszczyk had 2 for 15. And, that was basically it with the 49ers statistics. Then Dak Prescott, 23 of 43, 254 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Ezekiel Elliott really didn't run the ball that well, 31 yards rushing. Dak Prescott had 27. Pollard had 14. CeeDee Lamb had 5. Dalton Schultz had 89. He was their leading receiver. 89 receiving yards. Amari Cooper had 64 and a touchdown. Cedric Wilson had 62. CeeDee Lamb had 1 reception for 21 yards. And, that was basically it. Malik Turner had a catch for 6 yards. Pollard had 2 for 12. CJ Goodwin, he had 1 for 16. Because I think that was on the fake punt, because they did have a fake punt in this game. I forgot to say that. But, that was basically the stats for the game. And the Cowboys, they're one and done. And again, we talk about, Devontae Smith not getting the ball. CeeDee Lamb, 1 catch for 21 yards. That is unacceptable. He should be having more than that, more of an impact on this game. The fact that Dalton Schultz is their leading receiver is sad. You have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Cedric Wilson's been a good, number 4 guy, but now with Gallup tearing his ACL, he's got to step up and be the number 3. They got a solid receiving core. Get the ball to your playmakers. And then, of course, it comes out that Ezekiel Elliott has been playing with a torn MCL since, I think they said week 4 or week 6, something like that. So that's why he hasn't been running the ball effectively. But I don't like that, because it's basically you're making an excuse for why you have not been playing well all season. And it's like, if you really were that much in pain, you should not have been playing. Now, it is the playoffs, and players tough it out. I mean, we saw Thomas Davis a couple years ago for the Panthers play with a broken arm that he suffered in, I think, in the championship game against the Cardinals. He played in Super Bowl 50 against the Broncos. So guys want to play in these big games, but it's just at a certain point, don't come out and say that, because then you're just making excuses as to why you didn't play that well. But, it's just Cowboys offense. I mean, you only put up 7 points. That's the reason why you lost the game, along with the penalties. I mean, that's just unacceptable that you only put up 7 points. Now, what helped them out was Joey Bosa got a concussion, or sorry, Nick Bosa got a concussion. So he left the game. Fred Warner had an ankle injury, the middle linebacker for San Fran, so he was out. So two of their top defensive guys for the 49ers were not playing. And I think that also helped in why the Cowboys were able to come back. Because 49ers don't really have a great secondary, and we'll talk about that when we preview the upcoming game as well for divisional weekend. But, once that happened, the Cowboys were able to move the ball. And the 49ers defense looked amazing, in the beginning. They were just making Dak Prescott's life miserable. But, yeah, I mean, this game was unbelievable. I really enjoyed it, though I thought the Cowboys were going to come back and win at one point because it just seemed like it was going to happen. But, yeah, the 49ers were able to get the win. The key to the game really was Deebo Samuel and that rushing attack. 49ers got a really good rushing attack. And that's something that, their opponent, who they're playing on Saturday, has got to keep an eye on because if they can't stop the run, that's going to be a problem. But Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely a concern with the injuries. I mean, only passing for 125 yards. You could tell that he's not right. But we'll see what happens. But a big win for the 49ers. And yeah, Cowboys are one and done again. And the thing with Dak Prescott, I think he's a good quarterback. I've never been a big Dak guy. He's had great games here and there, but for me, he is not one of those. He's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's not a Justin Herbert. He's not a Tom Brady. He's not an Aaron Rodgers. He is not somebody that is going to be the reason why you win games. The talent around him, he benefits from that. And I just feel like he's a guy that I don't think is ever going to win a Super Bowl as of right now. I just feel like he doesn't elevate the talent around him. I feel like the talent elevates him. And this was just a perfect example of that. They only put up 7 points in the first half, like I said. And yeah, too little, too late. You got 10 points in the fourth quarter, but you should have been scoring points in the first half. So that's really all my thoughts on that game. And the 49ers, they move on to take on the Packers, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And Dallas, I don't know what they're going to do in the offseason, but they got to figure it out. But I was very frustrated. You got to be frustrated as a Dallas fan that your top playmakers, CeeDee Lamb, has one catch. I mean, that just, again, we talk about that with Devontae Smith. How is it that your playmakers are only doing that much? You got to get them more involved. And they just did not do that in this game.
Very well said, Kenny. You hit on a lot of great points there about the Cowboys, and you're bringing it home with CeeDee Lamb. I mean, this was a guy that was an elite wide receiver and playmaker for the Cowboys practically all season long. And the fact that he only sees, one catch in this playoff game is ridiculous, because CeeDee Lamb is better than that, and he deserves, more than that. I mean, you just go through his game log the rest of the season. So here it is, right here for you, right in front of your eyes. Okay, this was the lowest. This was the lowest. Excuse me, I can't word it right. This was the least receptions on the season actually for CeeDee Lamb. Every single game that he played in, he had at least 2 receptions. He didn't record a second one in this game. 1 for 21. That was it. And Cowboys really have to be disappointed as a whole with this loss. This, by the way, was definitely the best game of Wild Card Weekend. It's not really close outside of Raiders Bengals. This was by far, I think, the number one. It brought in massive ratings for CBS because who doesn't love watching the Cowboys lose on Wild Card Week and in this fashion? And where else do you begin? But the Cowboys only managed -3 total yards in the first quarter before the Niners marched down on an 8-minute drive to go up 13-0. And then finally they got Amari Cooper on a touchdown pass to at least get on the scoreboard before halftime. It's 16-7 going into, the second half. Cowboys come out with the ball. You think, okay, maybe they can actually, get a good drive going, set the tone for the second half. No, they end up punting it away. San Francisco then does the same. And then Dak gets, intercepted. And all of a sudden, things look really bad for Dallas. And that was really the point where you thought, oh my, Cowboys are in trouble. And they were, because Deebo then rushed on that, 26-yard touchdown to the house, wide open. I mean, just blew through the defense. And that's what has been great for the Niners the second half of the season, that Deebo Samuel has become a part-time wide receiver, part-time running back. I mean, they'll take that any day from a guy who's so versatile like Deebo is. But yeah, where it all changed, and I think a lot of people will agree. Just under 10 minutes left, Jimmy Garoppolo throws a critical interception that probably should have never happened. He just definitely misfired on that ball, allowing for Dallas to gain possession down near the red zone, and then they followed up with a touchdown on 5 plays. Dak Prescott ran it in himself. Left side was wide open. We kind of saw that one coming, as soon as the play began. That left side was all wide open. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, well, now Dallas is really in this game. And they were. They forced San Francisco to, punt it away. Right after that, 4th and 1, like you were saying, and then Trent Williams gets called, I think, for the false start, if I remember correctly, or it was a delay of game. It was something like that.
I think it was like an illegal formation or something like that.
False start. It was a false start.
Okay.
That's right. And that's what costed, San Fran a chance at what I thought potentially could have been a long field goal, but at the same time, you also want to pooch punt it because you don't want to risk Robbie Gould missing it and then putting the Cowboys at the 40. So either way, bad mistakes there. Bad mistakes. And then all of a sudden, that final drive, the last 40 seconds, the ball's in Dak's hands. And, you're starting to think, okay, well, something could happen because I'm going through it here, play by play. Okay, Cedric Wilson hits him up for 9 yards. Then it's Tony Pollard for another 10. Then it's Dalton Schultz for another 9. All of a sudden, you're at the 40-yard line of San Francisco. And with 14 seconds left, and this is the play that everyone is going to keep talking about because Dak decides on a QB draw to go right up the middle. And personally, I don't mind the play call, but Dak has to have a mental clock that tells him when to slide down because he slides down. He goes all the way down, I think, near the 25-yard line. There's about 10 seconds left by the time he goes down. And the ref has to place the ball where Dak goes down, the exact spot. That's the ref's responsibility. And he was in the way of the play, but he has to do it. The Cowboys were not aware. They totally failed at the game management in these final seconds because Dak, like I said, he has to know when to fall down. Clock runs out. Everybody's up in arms like, whoa, what just happened? Referee Alex Kemp calls the game, and that's it. And I'm sorry. The call, it's okay. I think a lot of people are criticizing the call. The call is fine. It's just that Dak has to know, I think, when to slide. He has to know that, hey, we only have this much time. And it was a risky call, don't get me wrong. It really was. But this was a horrible ending to, the game for Dallas. And it's another fail for them in general, Kenny, in the playoffs. Because, it seems like time and time again, this team just can't get it done on the big stage in the playoffs. With the roster that they had this season, it's an embarrassment. At 12-5, division winners. Now you're 6-0 in the NFC East, but what are you against everyone else? 6-5 this season. Definitely not good, to see that. Great that you're killing it in your division, but you have to, prove it against the bigger opponents. Something that the Cowboys failed at this year. Now, obviously, I think Mike McCarthy is under a little bit of pressure because, it was a risky call between him and Kellen Moore. I will say that much. Obviously, the call came in from Kellen, and McCarthy must have approved it because otherwise, why would they have gone through with it? I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Will Dan Quinn perhaps get promoted to head coach if McCarthy gets fired? I think that would be the best route for Dallas because Dan Quinn did a great job with that defense. He has a lot of head coaching experience. But then again, he's going to get interviews at other places too. This is a huge, huge deal, Kenny, that how that one play changed the course of the postseason for the Cowboys. Because now all of a sudden you have some stirring news about potential coaching changes. You're out of the playoffs, one and done, for another time. And it was just a fail on all aspects, really, for Dallas, that just not being aware of clock management in such a crucial stretch of the game. And I mean, I'd hate to say that the 49ers got a little bit lucky, but I think if if Dallas got the ball back with a little bit more time, we could play the hypothetical game. They're going down and getting that touchdown. I really think so because they were really, getting some chunk plays that made it look like they were going to have a good shot. And unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition. They might have had 1 second left, but if they were aware of what was going on with the clock, but a fail on all aspects. The 49ers do deserve this divisional round appearance, though, because they do have playmakers, Kenny. We've been talking about it with Debo, Kittle, Elijah Mitchell, who's coming big time this year, with an injured Raheem Mostert out for the whole season, basically. It's nice to watch this 49ers team. They really aren't that bad of a football team right now. They have playmakers. And obviously Jimmy Garoppolo is the one, I guess if you want to call it weakness in this offense. He's not a fantastic quarterback. But then again, he doesn't have to do all of the work with all of the weapons that he actually has around him. And Kyle Shanahan is an offensive mastermind. They have Green Bay's number in the postseason. So looking forward to seeing that matchup on Saturday night at Lambeau. But really, big fail for Dallas and good win really overall after a great start for the 49ers. What an excellent game that was on Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, definitely. That was by far the best game. And another reason for that is the final game for Sunday that we will talk about, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Steelers kind of found themselves in the playoffs somehow. I mean, we were talking about it before we started recording. I don't know how the Steelers made the playoffs. I really don't. They've gotten blown out a handful of times. Getting blown out by the Bengals. They were getting blown out by the Vikings, but they made things interesting at the end. They got blown out by Kansas City, 36-10. So you kind of expected more of the same in this game. And the score, I guess, compared to the first meeting was a little more respectable, but still, the Steelers, they were dominated in this game. They were down by as much as 35-7. They actually were up 7-0 at one point. When TJ Watt scored that touchdown, I was saying to myself, okay, after no scoring in the first quarter, I was saying to myself, okay, maybe things are going to be a little different this time. Not to say that the Steelers would win, but maybe this game is going to be more competitive. But the Steelers' offense just couldn't get anything going. Najee Harris, who didn't fumble all year, had his first fumble in this game. And this was Ben Roethlisberger's final game. He went 29-44, 215 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They couldn't really run the ball. Najee Harris only had 29 yards rushing. He was their leading rusher. James Washington, he was their leading receiver. He had 2 receptions for 37 yards and a touchdown. 2 pretty good catches. And Deontay Johnson, he had a rough game. There were a lot of drops in this game. That was the other problem. The Steelers, Deontay Johnson couldn't hold on to the ball in this game. I feel like if they could have, maybe caught the ball a little bit better in this game, maybe, it's a little bit different. Again, Chiefs still probably win, but still, it probably would have been closer. It doesn't really help when you got guys dropping passes. So he had 5 receptions for 34 yards and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster actually played in this game. He only had 5 receptions for 26 yards. A lot of guys were involved in the offense, but they just really couldn't get anything going. It was a lot of dinking and dunking. And, they did get 2 garbage touchdowns in the second half, but it just really didn't matter. The Chiefs were the much better team. Patrick Mahomes passed for 404 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a pick. Jerick McKinnon was pretty good in this game, 61 yards rushing, and he also had 81 yards receiving and a touchdown. Travis Kelce had a monster game, 5 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. Did not play in their Week 16 meeting, and then he was, because of COVID, but was able to play in this game, and he had a great game. Tyreek Hill had 5 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. Byron Pringle, who's really been taking on a larger role in the playoffs. Well, not really in the playoffs, but over the last couple of weeks, he had 2 touchdowns in this game. And also one of their offensive linemen had a touchdown, Nick Allegretti. So, yeah, a lot of people got involved. Travis Kelce threw a touchdown pass in this game, too. Forgot to mention that. So everybody got involved for the Chiefs. And, they look like they're ready for another Super Bowl run themselves to get back there. They obviously were dealing with some struggles early on in the season. People are like, oh, is the sky falling? Are they not going to make the playoffs? I mean, I always knew they were going to make the playoffs. It did look really bad, though, at some points during the year, especially after that blowout to the Titans, 27-3. That was bad. Mahomes got hurt in that game, actually, but he didn't miss any time. the Chiefs, they look really good. And yeah, now they take on Buffalo, and that is going to be a great game. But yeah, not really much to say about this game other than that's how Ben Roethlisberger goes out. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, two-time Super Bowl champion. Obviously, probably would have liked to have won another ring, but it is what it is. The Steelers, they just offensively were not a good team this year. Especially I think it goes back to the offensive line because they lost Alejandro Villanueva, Mike Pouncey retired, David DeCastro they got rid of, um, Matt Fielder went to the Chargers, the guard. So they had a lot of new guys playing on this offensive line this year. And when you have this new offensive line that hasn't really gelled to go along with the fact that Ben Roethlisberger, your aging quarterback, is 39 years old, that was not a good recipe this year. And I think that's another reason why this team was compromised offensively, just because Ben really did not have time to throw. His offensive line was not very good, and he can't, dance around in the pocket and break off tackles like he was able to do in the past because he's older now. But I feel like with the Steelers, if they can get a better quarterback in the future, build a better offensive line, Najee Harris is going to do a lot better. And listen, they got a lot of young talent. Pat Fryermuth was good. Deontay Johnson improved this year. You got Chase Claypool. You got some guys to build around. You got that defense with TJ Watt, who, was their best player. There's no questions about that. And the best player did end up scoring a touchdown in this game. So, other than what I just said, and also getting secondary help too, because the secondary is a problem as well. Got to get some corners in there because Joe Hayden's obviously past his prime. You got to get somebody else in there. The Steelers, they still got talent on this team. They just need a quarterback and fix the offensive line and work on the secondary because you still got a good pass rush with those guys with TJ Watt, some of those other guys. So you got a foundation. Now you just gotta continue to stack up and get more pieces for that team. But yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see the Colts in there just because they were a better team, but they choked. But you know what? The Steelers made it. Give them credit. And you know what? Ben Roethlisberger wasn't the best, but this game. But you know what? Had a Hall of Fame career, and he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats. So that's really my thoughts on that game. And the Chiefs move on to play the Bills. Ben, what were your thoughts from this game?
Indeed, Kenny, you used a key word there that I really like, and it's about foundation. That's what the Steelers have right now. They have a foundation of being a good football team. You obviously have Mike Tomlin, who's been there a long time throughout a great chunk of Ben's career, and he knows how to head coach, of course, in the NFL. He's done it really well with Pittsburgh over the years. They have T.J. Watt on defense. Cam Hayward also had was a nice compliment to him this year. They were the two stars, I think, on this the defensive unit throughout most of the season. So a lot of credit to them. And, of course, T.J. Watt tying Michael Strahan's most sacks in the season record as well. So credit to him for that. An unbelievable year for T.J. Of course, this was, the end of Ben Roethlisberger's career. Like you said, 215 with 2 touchdowns, 29 for 44. And you know what? It's just clear throughout all this season, Ben just doesn't have the arm anymore. And that was the unfortunate part of, watching him throughout most of the year. It's just that he cannot throw beyond 15 yards at all. And that's why a lot of his passes were either dump offs or, short slants, screens. It was just simple stuff like that out of the playbook. And a lot of teams were obviously able to, pick up on that throughout the weeks as we went along through the year. But like you said, he is definitely a Hall of Famer with 2 rings. He's up there for a lot of things, and I think that includes all-time passing yards and such. So he's definitely got a very polished resume, and he will be in Canton in no time as a Hall of Fame quarterback. And it's also the end of the 2004 draft class with Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and Ben Roethlisberger, arguably one of the greatest draft quarterback classes to ever come into this league. And the 3 of them showed it the last 17, 18 years that we have seen them. And goodbye to that amazing class, because those were 3 fantastic QBs for the NFL. And look, the Steelers defense was no match for the Chiefs. They're just not that good, like we've been saying, outside of Watt and Hayward this season. They have some pieces that they got to continue developing, but that's definitely got to be one of their areas of focus outside of the quarterback situation, because Now that Ben's gone, really? Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins are your other two guys on your roster? That's just not going to work out.
Yeah, they might commit to Rudolph next year, so
Right.
I think they might be doing that just because they wanna tank possibly and try to get one of these other quarterbacks that are gonna be coming into the draft the following year. So, but I think
Yeah.
we've seen enough out of Mason Rudolph to know what he is.
Yeah, and he's not an NFL caliber quarterback, I think, in a lot of people's eyes. He's not going to be the answer long term. So that's one thing that Pittsburgh's going to have to, figure out going forward, the quarterback situation along with the defense. But yeah, after the TJ Watt, fumble recovery for a touchdown, that was cool because it's like for a second you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe Pittsburgh is coming to play tonight. They can keep this one close. And then all of a sudden, like we've seen before, the Kansas City Chiefs just turn on a switch and they are gone because they ultimately ended up with 478 total yards, a slew of touchdowns that came before the half. I'm pretty sure, after Watt put Pitt up 7-0, there was 10 minutes left in the half. The Chiefs put up 3 consecutive touchdown drives. And like you said, Travis Kelce makes a good quarterback. Found Byron Pringle in the end zone. Nick Allegretti got the big man touchdown for Mahomes. There's been a lot of those this season, by the way, throughout the NFL. So that was cool to see that in the playoffs, a big man touchdown. The Chiefs are just a cheat code once they get going. The only problem for them is that we saw it in this game. They did get off to a slow start, despite putting up 42 in the end.
The lollygagging, like I
Right.
always say.
Right. They come out a little bit stagnant and lethargic, and that's one thing that they really can't afford to do. When they go up against Buffalo this weekend, and that's one thing they're going to have to fine tune. But still, they really have to be pleased with this one because this was a fantastic offensive performance. Patrick Mahomes, stellar, 5 touchdowns for him as well, 404 yards. And they did what they had to do, and that's beat up on the Steelers. So obviously a little bit of a sad send off for Ben, but you know what? At least he does get a playoff game to end it, and a dominant win at Arrowhead for Kansas City.
Yeah, so those are all the Sunday games. So now let's get into the final game of Super Wildcard Weekend, and that was the Cardinals and the Rams. Just like a couple of these other games, this was also a blowout. Rams winning 34-11. Matthew Stafford getting his first career playoff victory. Only threw the ball 17 times, completed 13 passes, 202 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Cam Akers ran the ball for 58 yards, or 55 yards. Sony Michel ran the ball for 58 yards. Matthew Stafford had 22 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Cooper Kupp was their leading receiver. There's really no surprise with that. 61 yards receiving and a touchdown. OBJ continues his renaissance with the Rams. 4 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown. And then on the Cardinals side, Kyler Murray did not have a good performance. 19 to 34, 137 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Cardinals only ran the ball for 61 yards in total. James Conner had a rushing touchdown, so he finishes off his tremendous season with a touchdown. Christian Kirk was their leading receiver with 51 yards. Rondell Moore had 32. Eno Benjamin, 26. Zach Ertz, 21. James Conner, 5. And Darrell Daniels had 2 receiving yards. That's basically the stats for that game. A.J. Green was targeted 3 times, had no catches. And Antoine Wesley had 2 targets and no receptions. So, yeah, the Cardinals, they did not play well in this game. Kyler Murray just looked off. He didn't really have time to throw. And, they got dominated. Rams were the better team. Matthew Stafford looked comfortable. OBJ looks like he's found the home in LA. He's definitely going to be a factor in this game against the Bucks when we talk about it. The Rams defense looked really good. Kyler Murray threw one of the worst pick sixes I've ever seen. I mean, he just, it looked like he was going to get sacked for safety in the end zone, and he just threw an underhand pass to the defensive back for the Rams, who was able to corral it and run it into the end zone for 6. So another big thing, Rams running game. Cam Akers has looked really good. And this is a guy that I don't think a lot of people expected to be playing towards Achilles in August. And it looked like he wasn't going to be back till the following season, but came back, last couple games of the season and he looked pretty good in the game against the Cardinals. And running game is definitely going to have to be a huge factor in this game against the Bucks. I'm really looking forward to see what that Bucks run defense will do against now this, I would say, potent Rams rushing attack with Sony Michel and now Cam Akers. So the Rams, they move on. Matthew Stafford gets his first playoff win. And yeah, now we get a rematch of Rams Bucks from week 3. So really looking forward to that. And as for the Cardinals, got off to a really good start and then, got eliminated by the Rams, just like they did last year, although that was in week 17. This time it was a week, well, actually, technically now 2 weeks later because the season got extended a week and the Cardinals made the playoffs. So, the Cardinals get off to a hot start and then you fall flat. Kyler Murray gets off to these great starts and he falls flat. It's not good. And a lot of people are talking about Cliff Kingsbury and we'll see what happens. Obviously they didn't have D Hop in this game. I think he definitely would have helped, but I don't know if that would have made the difference. So that's really my thoughts on that game. Cardinals go home, Rams move on.
Yeah, this was basically the similar storyline to how the weekend began on Saturday night up in Buffalo. Domination start to finish, and that's exactly what the Rams did in this game, basically all the way through. Cardinals, I think, had one of the worst first half offensive performances that I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure off the top of my head that they didn't finish the first half with positive total yards. It was disgusting. And this is a depressing statistic. If you're Kyler Murray and you have less passing yards for almost 2/3 of the game than Odell, I mean, are you kidding me?
That's right,
And
because
that was a
Odell did throw that pass to Cam Akers for 40 yards. I failed to mention that, but yeah, that's bad.
right trick play, and that's what makes Sean McVay really good with his creativity and his play calling. And the Rams were great on both sides of the ball. They are a scary defensive unit, that's for sure. And look, Kyler Murray was dreadful. I mean, his box, the fact that he was even able to get to 137 passing yards is amazing. He threw 2 awful picks. The one in the end zone, like you mentioned, Kenny, he literally flicked it out of there, allowing for a pick six easy the other way, which put the Rams up, 21-0 at that point. And that's when the game was over. It really was, because the Cardinals weren't doing anything. They made a little bit of noise out of half when they were able to get a nice, 75-yard drive with a James Conner capped off with that touchdown by Conner and a 2-point conversion to boot. And that was really it. The Cardinals didn't do anything. And, they have the longest active drought in all 4 of the major sports in terms of no championships. They have the longest active streak in that regard. 1947 or 1946, actually, I think, was the last time that the Cardinals won a championship of any kind, back when they were in St. Louis as football. So that was a long time ago. We're going back to. But still, the Cardinals. This was another depressing finish to the season for them. They started off among the top teams in the NFC, and we were taking them for real. Going into that game against Green Bay on Thursday night, which I think was like week 6 or week 7. It was earlier in the year. And then another second half collapse game. And that's why I personally think Cliff Kingsbury might be on the hot seat going into next season. He's not going to get fired at all after this year. But if something like this happens again next year, Arizona's got to move on from him, because Cliff Kingsbury, he didn't have a fantastic track record in college when he was at Texas Tech under Patrick Mahomes at that time. So, I mean, the Cardinals have to tread lightly with him, I think, going forward, depending on what happens next season. And they gotta pay attention to that. But obviously, I think the jitters got to Kyler Murray as well. You can't forget that this was his first playoff game as an NFL quarterback. So I think the nerves got to him a little bit in some ways as well. But still, the Rams defense is strong, and that's what this team has been priding themselves on most of this season and last year as well. They really were and have been a strong defensive team. and that's what makes them such a big challenger in the NFC. And they're going to have a big matchup this weekend in Tampa. But you know what? You got to feel good for Matt Stafford as well, because he puts up 200 passing yards of his own with a pair of passing touchdowns, and found a lot of success and exploited that Arizona defense. They have playmakers as well. The Rams, that's been the common theme, throughout this the show so far. And Kenny Cooper Cup actually had a light night, with 61 yards. What he's been doing this year. So, he's going to be the X factor, going forward on this Rams offense for sure. So, really looking forward to seeing what this team can accomplish. Definitely would still consider them as a dark horse pick for the Super Bowl in the NFC. Great win on the first ever Monday night wildcard game.
Yep. So now let's transition over to the divisional games. So we'll start off with the Saturday games. So the first game up is the Bengals taking on the Titans. Now, again, with all these games, I feel like anyone can win these games. I just feel like, regardless of what we get for the Super Bowl this year, I think it's going to be good. And this gets the ball rolling for divisional weekend. So the Titans, their strength is obviously Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, if he's right, best running back in football, he's what makes this offense go. And still not too sure if he's going to play or not, but I think he's probably going to play. And if he does, and if he's anywhere close to he was before the injury, I think he's going to cause problems for the Bengals defense. And then on the other side, you got the Bengals offense, which is, yes, Joe Mixon had a really good season, but their strength is throwing the football. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And I think really the keys is how is the Titans defense going to stop Jamar Chase, and how are the Bengals defense going to prepare for Derrick Henry in this game? Now, in terms of who I think is going to win, I think I'm going to have to go with the Titans just because they're well rested. They are the number one seed, but I can definitely see the Bengals winning this game just because of their passing attack and just because Joe Mixon can run the football effectively. I think there will be a decent amount of points scored in this game, but if the Titans are not, if the Bengals are not able to stop Derrick Henry, if Derrick Henry's running the football like he's accustomed to doing, then I think it's going to be a long afternoon for the Bengals. But I'm going to say the Titans win this game in a close one. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, so obviously these are four fantastic divisional round matchups that we have on the slate this weekend. I'll be the betting analyst here and give you the current lines that we have up to date. So right now, of course, the Titans are the favorite, -3.5 currently. Over under set at 48 for this game. And this is a fantastic start to the weekend. It really is. It goes underrated with the other three matchups out there because those are obviously the more perennial playoff teams that we're used to seeing. This is the first time in forever that the Bengals have been here. And the Titans also have, struggled in the past to make it to the divisional round. The last time they were able to do that was against, it was Baltimore, I believe. I think that Baltimore
they
game.
beat Baltimore in the division
right.
round, yeah. And then they lost them last year in the wild card round last year. But yeah.
Right, 2019, that was when they went to Baltimore, right?
Yes.
The years get jumbled up sometimes in the mind.
Yeah.
But no, but this is a good start of the weekend. I think both these teams match up really well. The word on the block, of course, that Derrick Henry is going to be back for this game after being out for a long period of time. And perfect for the Titans, really. They can use him in the backfield. I mean, Dante Foreman has done a fantastic job filling his shoes, though. So either way, no matter what Henry's threshold is at, I believe he's supposed to be close to 100% from the reports that I've seen. You don't know what you're going to get out of him necessarily, so I think you tread lightly with him. Foreman's got to be used as a security blanket just in case, depending on how this game goes. But this is a great matchup on both sides. Two fantastic offenses, I think. I would say advantage Bengals because of Burrow, and I think he's definitely a little bit better than what Ryan Tannehill is. But both teams have a great set of playmakers. You got T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Jamar Chase for the Bengals. Meanwhile, you got A.J. Brown, Julio Jones for the Titans. And like I said, both have good running backs, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry. This is a great matchup on paper. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to take the Bengals, though, outright. You know what? I think coming off that game against the Raiders, sometimes the extra week might slip you up a little bit. So I know Tennessee is going to be rowdy and ready to go on Saturday in front of their home crowd. We know it. It's going to be a fantastic way to open the weekend. I'm going to take the Bengals outright to win, though, because I like Joe Burrow personally as a better quarterback. And I think they've done a lot this season to prove that they belong here on this stage in the playoffs.
All right, so we're different on that game. So now let's get into the game that's closest to my heart, and that is the 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. So obviously these two teams met early back in week 3. Packers won that game 30-28. Rodgers connecting with Devontae Adams on that final drive to set up the Mason Crosby game-winning field goal. And obviously these two teams met twice back in 2019. Packers lost 37-8 and 37-20 in the championship game. So now they're meeting in Lambeau, and these two teams are very different. Packers are a much better team than they were in 2019. And also, along with that, the 49ers, Deebo Samuel is a lot better than he was back in 2019, I think. Raheem Mostert's not there, so he's not going to be running for 220 yards against the Packers in this game. They got Elijah Mitchell, and they got Deebo Samuel. So I think really the key for this game, the Packers just got to stop the run. And if they can do that, I think they're going to win this game pretty easily. The 49ers, their key is to get to Aaron Rodgers, because if they don't, Rodgers is going to pick apart that secondary like he did when they met in week 3. The 49ers, their defense is built on getting pressure. And if they can't get pressure, and you got Bakhtiari coming back, and this offensive line is one of the best in football, then Rodgers is going to pick them apart. Really, the 49ers, they got to jump out to a lead. If they don't do that, I think the Packers are going to win this game pretty easily. And Garoppolo's banged up with the thumb, with his shoulder. So I think the Packers should win this game. I'm going to pick them to win it because they're at home, and they're going to move on to the championship game for a 3rd consecutive season. But should be a good game, and the 49ers got to get George Kittle the ball more, because the fact that he only had 1 catch, I mean, that's just ridiculous. So I'm taking the Packers, but it's definitely going to be tough.
Yeah, this is a matchup of the past, that we've seen before in the playoffs. It all traces back to was it the 2019 NFC Championship game, Kenny? Did I get the year?
Yeah,
Was
yeah. It took place in 2020, but
right.
It was the 2019-2020 season.
Right. So yeah, it was the 2019 NFC Championship game, and that's the one that I think a lot of people remember. And the 49ers obviously torched the Packers out by the Bay. I think it was 37-20 to go to Super Bowl 54. Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 against San Francisco in the playoffs as a whole. This is an interesting line, what we have right now available. Of course, these odds are coming from DraftKings Sportsbook. The Packers are a 5.5-point favorite. Over-under is at 47 right now. And Kenny, here's the stat that you've been waiting for throughout the entire show. Right here it is. So there is a chance, as long as 49ers Packers doesn't get to 7 by the time kickoff comes Saturday night, this could be the first time since 2003 that at least one of the divisional round games doesn't feature a 7-point spread or more. How about that? You never would have guessed that, because you think through the last 18 years that there have been some incredible playoff matchups, and you're thinking, well, how can somebody be a touchdown favorite or more in every single year? Well, I guess so, because that's what the stats have said. So this would be impressive, shaping up to be a record weekend in terms of matchups with the betting lines. But it's an interesting line. Obviously, the Packers are at home at Lambeau Field. I like their odds definitely over the Titans off of a bye week, just because I think the Packers are a more well-rounded team. They've been here multiple years. Like you said, they're trying to get to their 3rd consecutive NFC Championship game if they're able to take down the 49ers. Both teams match up well. They have solid offenses. I'm really hoping, I think for the 49ers' sake, that they're going to have to get Nick Bosa and Fred Warner back at full health. Bosa is listed as questionable, of course, with that concussion that he suffered. And I think so if Bosa's questionable, I think Fred Warner is supposed to be back. I've seen reports about that.
Yeah, I think he
He
has
is going to
practiced a
play.
little bit. Yeah.
It was a twisted ankle, I believe, that Fred Warner had in that Dallas game. So, they're going to need those two back, but the 49ers cannot be taken lightly. They are still a very good football team, even with upsetting Dallas. And this is interesting just because of the past history, because, Rodgers is 0-3 in the playoffs against these guys. So is this finally going to be the time that he breaks it? I think yes. I really have faith in Green Bay once again this year to, make some noise in the playoffs because they are a good football team. They really are. And once again, the path runs through Lambeau Field. So this is here we go again, Kenny. Are we going to see the same movie, or are we going to watch something else?
I really hope not. I hope we see a reboot.
Yeah,
They
but
actually get it done this time.
But something I'm looking forward to again: Deebo Samuel versus Aaron Jones. That might be a running
and
back.
AJ Dillon.
AJ Dillon
Don't
too.
forget AJ
Absolutely.
Dillon.
They've been a great tandem up there in Green Bay this year. Buckle up. This is a fantastic game. Saturday night, Lambeau Field. Teams, perhaps single digits throughout the game. 49ers, Packers in the divisional.
Yeah, it just screams advantage Packers, but you don't really know. At least they don't have Colin Kaepernick at quarterback because he, that wild card matchup back in 2013, I mean, he just ran all over them. At least with Garoppolo, you're not going to really get that, but you might get that at Deebo Samuel. So we'll see what happens with that.
And I will take the Packers to win, but I do think the 49ers do cover that 5.5. I think that's a little bit too big for a big game.
Yeah, that
like
is a
this.
big spread. That definitely is a big spread. Okay, so now let's get into the Sunday games. So we got Tampa Bay and the Rams, the LA Rams. And these two teams met back in week 3. Rams won 36-26, I believe, something like that. Deshaun Jackson had a great game in that game, and he's not on the team anymore. Now it's Odell Beckham, and they don't have Robert Woods. But now they have Cam Akers and Sony Michel running the football. The Rams defense looked really good against the Cardinals. Godwin had a good game against the Rams, but he's not going to be in this game because he's out with the torn ACL. Gronk, I think that's the game that he hurt his ribs or his back. So he was kind of compromised in that game, but he'll be healthy. You got Mike Evans. There's no Fournette in this game. Well, there's no Fournette. There might not be any Fournette in this game. Tom Brady threw for 400 yards in the game against the Rams in week 3. Yeah, I just feel like the Rams, they match up with the Bucs really well, though. They beat them in Tampa last year, and that was with Jared Goff at quarterback. They beat them this year with Stafford. Odell Beckham Jr. has been playing really good. The tandem of Cam Akers and Sony Michel has been working. Rams defense looks good. I feel like they could put pressure on Brady. Now, like we were talking about before when I mentioned it briefly, Tristan Wirfs and Ryan Jensen were injured, and also the backup to I think it was Wirfs. I think he got injured too. If you don't have if Brady doesn't have those guys, I just think that that's going to be a problem, especially when you got Aaron Donald and Von Miller rushing the passer, and we saw what Von Miller did to Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game back in 2016. When Peyton was still playing. So, this game's going to be tough for Brady. Especially because you don't have all your weapons, your O-line's banged up, your running backs are banged up, but you still got that defense. And the defense turns it up in January. They did that last year. They looked really good against the Eagles. So this game, I don't think is going to be as high scoring as I think we would expect. The last time these two teams met. But having said that, all the good things I said about the Rams, I can't bet against Brady. I just can't do it. So I might do that if it's Brady and Rodgers in the championship game again, but I just can't do it. I got to take the Bucs. I think they'll win a close game, but Matthew Stafford I think will turn the ball over, and I feel like that's really going to hurt them. And I think that's really going to be the key to the Bucs winning the game is Matthew Stafford turning the football over. So I'm going to say the Bucs win in a close one, but this is another game that should be really good. So that's my thoughts on that game.
Yeah, the Sunday afternoon game. This is, of course, on NBC. Rams Bucks at 3 o'clock. Um, of course, this is a very close line as well. As of right now, Buccaneers are a 3-point favorite. Over under is 48.5. I think just about where you'd expect the line to be in a game like this. And look, this is a fantastic matchup. It really is. This is the best one that I think the Bucks could have asked for in terms of a challenge in the NFC. And the Rams are that team right now to really challenge in the divisional round. But Kenny, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for Tampa Bay just with the status of some of these players. Of course. So we do know, according to ESPN's injury report, Leonard Fournette was spotted participating in practice today. No comment about if it was anything significant, but I highly doubt he's going to be playing in this game come Sunday. Ronald Jones is questionable as well for this game. He did not practice today on Thursday. Brashad Perriman also did not practice Thursday. Levante David was limited. Sean Murphy Bunting was also limited. I think the Packers have a lot of injuries, or the Buccaneers have a lot of injuries.
Packers are getting guys back.
Right.
They're getting a lot of their guys
Bucks,
back. Randall Cobb they just activated. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, go on.
Sorry. Yeah, and that's good. They do not actually have Marquez Valdes-Scantling on Saturday.
No, he's doubtful. It seems like he's doubtful. But like I said, they're getting Randall Cobb back. Obviously, they're two different players, but still, at least you got him back for the game, and you still got Devontae Adams.
Right, exactly. But I don't know. I just think a lot of injuries right now for Tampa Bay is making me question, if this team, can beat the Rams. And I'll tell you one thing: if LA comes out on defense like they did against Arizona, if they have the ability to get to Brady, and this game is going to swing in their favor. It really is, because because that's another big storyline to look at, Kenny, with the status of Tristan Wirfs and Ryan Jensen, the big bad center for Tampa Bay. If those two guys are out for this game, yeah, absolutely. I think the Rams are going to win this game, because you have Aaron Donald on the other side who can just attack offensive linemen like crazy. You could triple team the guy. He probably could find a way to get through it. That's how powerful Aaron Donald is. And he's one of those stout defensive members for the Rams. So, look, I understand Tom Brady's going for championship number 8 this year, as ridiculous as that sounds. The guy is still unbelievable. If not the MVP, the number 2, and he's got it locked up at number 2 in that case, because it's going to be either Rodgers or him for MVP this season. It really is. But you know what? I'm calling it right now, Kenny. I am taking the Los Angeles Rams in this game. I'm feeling good for this team. It's just too questionable right now, I think, to take the Bucks with a lot of these injuries potentially. Now, of course, if some of these guys play, it's going to be a disadvantage for the Rams. But you know what? I think they have a healthier squad overall. Sure, Matthew Stafford can turn the ball over, like you mentioned, and that's definitely the one caveat I have in picking the Rams. But give me the Rams, man. I've been high on this team.
I like the pick.
I've been high on this team, throughout most of the season. I think you have as well. And they're looking for revenge. So, revenge game in the divisional round for the Rams. I'll take them to win outright against the Bucks.
All right. I just want to let you know you're down Tom Brady. All right. So if the Bucks win, that's we'll make sure to talk about that when we do the championship preview. All right. So,
but I will just say quickly, if the Bucks do somehow win this game, which they definitely still have a great chance. Don't get me wrong; they're at home after all. Imagine we see Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers number 2 in the NFC Championship. Could you imagine?
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, I'm saying that to you, but meanwhile, if that's the matchup, I'm probably going to take Rodgers just because that's going to be with my heart and not with my head. And we won't be watching that game together because we did watch that together last year, and that was a disaster. So we'll see what happens. So
sure will.
All right, so let's get to the final game of divisional weekend, and that is the Bills and the Chiefs. Now, these two teams met in week 5. Bills dominated 38-20. Now they played in the AFC Championship game. Chiefs dominated them. I think it was 38-25. The final score was. So yeah, the Bills, they want to get revenge for that playoff loss, but the Chiefs, they want to get that revenge from Week 5 where they just got destroyed. Um, you know, they played really sloppy in that game. The Chiefs' defense was awful. Josh Allen had a great game. Patrick Mahomes had a pick six, but that was because the ball went through Tyreek Hill's hands and Micah Hyde picked it off and ran it in for a touchdown. I think it was Micah Hyde. It was either him or Jordan Poyer. But yeah, this is going to be a fantastic game. The Bills, like we were talking about, they've established a running game with Devin Singletary, and I like the Bills' chances to win this game a lot. I think this is a flip of a coin game as well, but I can't go against the Chiefs in the playoffs. I thought the Chiefs looked really good against the Steelers, even though yes, it was against the Steelers, but still, the Chiefs have looked good for a while. Their offense, and it's playoff time. I mean, the one key thing for them is they cannot lollygag. They cannot get off to this slow start because if they do, the Bills are not going to look back. They are going to take advantage of that. They're not going to. The Bills, I don't think, are going to be a team that's going to blow a 24 to nothing lead like the Texans did a couple years ago. You know, um, I think if the Bills have a multiple score lead in this game, I don't think they're going to look back. But I think the Chiefs are going to be focused for this game. This is January. They know what it takes to win these big games in the playoffs. And, sometimes Josh Allen can get erratic in some of these big games. And you know what? That could happen here. I expect him to play well. I expect both quarterbacks to play well. But at the end of the day, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes. And I think the Chiefs are going to go to the AFC Championship game and take on Tennessee. So that's my thoughts on that game. But it's definitely going to be really tough for the Chiefs to win. So.
Yeah, yeah, this is the cream of the crop. In the 4 games this weekend, this is the best one. It really is. It's hard to say that with some of the others that are out there. But yeah, here we are. Sunday night, CBS, Nance Romo, Bills Chiefs in the divisional round. I'll take it any day. As expected, you would think this line would be really tight right now, and it certainly is. The Chiefs are the slight favorite at home, 2-point favorite to be exact. The over-under is very high as well,
I always
53
hate
and a
2 point
half.
spreads. I
I
always
know,
hate them. They are so
I
hard
know.
to pick, and I for the most part I always get them wrong.
And it's not 2.5. It is 2 straight up right now. So we'll see
But
how that
regardless,
line
two, two
continues
and a
moving.
half. I just hate
Right.
anything with two. I just don't like
No, I agree. I'd have to agree with
it.
you. It's terrible. And 3 is just the ultimate kryptonite, just like Rams Bucks. But yeah, high over under, like I said, 53 and a half. So clearly the odds makers like this one to be a shootout. And remember, the first game this season was 38-20 Buffalo, which totals 58. So technically that game went over too. So a little advice going into this game, perhaps for Sunday, I think it's going to be a shootout as well. But you know what? I was joking a little bit in some ways, Kenny. I think you remember how I was, talking about Stephon Diggs going out there, watching the presentation of the Lamar Hunt Trophy to the Kansas City Chiefs, and a little bit of perhaps revenge going in through his head, going into next season. And look where we are right now. These two finally get to face off against each other once again. It's not for the championship, but it is in the divisional round. This is going to be, I think, another classic between these two. Um, it's so much fun to watch these two. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes are two amazing quarterbacks. Both teams have like ridiculous offenses. Those that you would think you would see in an all Madden game on Madden, but it's not Madden. This is real life, folks. This is the NFL. And I think the Bills do have still a slightly better defense. I give credit to Steve Spagnuolo because he has transformed this defensive unit. They are much better, and they have grown ever since that Tennessee Titans game in week 7. But this time, I'm siding with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I think it's their time. And depending on whoever wins this game, I would take the winner of the Bengals Titans game all day in the AFC Championship, because I think both of these teams are better on paper, I think, than the Bengals and the Titans. We're going to have to see what happens, of course, this weekend before we jump to any conclusions. But at least right now, I would say going into this weekend that both these teams are better than the other two, fighting for the AFC Championship spot this weekend. This is going to be a fantastic matchup. I am looking forward to this game so much. But I understand, Kenny, we've talked about the lollygagging that the Chiefs have and how they can flip on a switch. And it's going to happen. I expect the Bills to jump on top early, and they're going to struggle staying in the lead. This lead's going to flip-flop back and forth multiple times the way I see it playing out in my head. But like I said, I think the Bills have gained a lot of experience this season together, and I think that they're the more well-rounded team by just a hair. And I know I'm going against Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. Yeah, what great picks by me. So, maybe they'll both lose.
Hey, you know what? You get a lot of criticism from, our friends that you like to take the favorites, and you're not doing that here, which I can appreciate. You're being different. And you know what? Let's see what happens. It's nice to be different.
Yeah, I'll go out on a limb. Like I said, I do like the Bills in this game. And one more point to throw in too. I really personally think that next to Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen is the next best quarterback in the league on the run. He has incredible speed for his height. Oh, he is massive.
Nobody wants to tackle him.
Yeah, have fun trying to stop him if he's able to get on a breakaway. Because Kansas State might have some trouble if that happens.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, Kenny, we've criticized Devin Singletary, throughout a good chunk of the season about how much he was struggling. Well, in fact,
just really the running back, committee as a whole, because they really just they were trying different combinations. They had Matt Breida, handling the bulk of the carries, but they finally committed to Singletary, and he's been running the ball pretty well. I think it's just because you got to get one of these guys in a rhythm, and I feel like you're constantly like, here, Devin Singletary, you take these two drives, and then, we throw in Zach Moss, we throw in Breida. You can't really, there's no consistency, there's no rhythm, and I think that might have been a problem with that. Now that they're committing to one running back, they look like a different team.
Don't look now. Devin Singletary, in his last 5 games, he has racked up 7 touchdowns. And before that, he had 2. 2. Throughout the early portion of the season, leading into this great finishing stretch for him. Now, of course, he only has one 100-plus yard rushing game, and that came against Atlanta in Week 17. But Devin Singletary has really come on the last couple of games when the Bills needed him, and we've criticized them, of course, like you were just saying. You especially have been calling them, the Buffalo one-dimensionals as a joke because you have some friends that are Bills fans, but all of a sudden they're not so one-dimensional now the last couple of weeks. And if Singletary is able to get success, that's going to be a huge advantage. And I think that would swing in the Bills' favor for sure. So, you know what? The Bills are coming into form at the right time. Like I said, I'm going out on a limb with the Dogs. I'm taking 3 of the dogs to win outright this weekend. So, but seriously, whatever, if you got something going on this weekend, what are you doing? Get in front of your TV, get some popcorn, get the soda, get the beer, get whatever.
Get some chips and some onion dip. Definitely. At least for
this is really shaping up to perhaps be an all-time playoff weekend.
So. Yep.
I'm really not even kidding when I say this. Let's pray, NFL fans, that these games are way better than what we saw on Wild Card Weekend, because that was not fun. But give me the Buffalo Bills in the rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Onions!
Oh my God! Wow, I like it. I like the energy. You had some ups and unleashed energy there. I didn't think we were going to get that over Skype. I really, I'm happy about that. Yeah, no, well said. I agree. I think this has the potential to be an all-time great divisional weekend. Love every game, and yeah, I hope they live up to their potential. So yeah, that's pretty much all we wanted to touch upon. Ben, do you have any final remarks before we end the show here?
No, like I said, sit back and enjoy. These are definitely, I think, the 8 best teams remaining in the playoffs. Even with the 49ers upsetting the Cowboys, they're the better team right now, I
Yeah,
think, personally. And all 4 of these matchups, like we've just been preaching throughout the show, they're going to be special. At least that's what we certainly hope so. So sit back and enjoy this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
definitely. So yeah, that's all we got for tonight. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Whatever you're doing with this video. So we'll be back next time. We'll recap all the games and we will preview Championship Sunday. So until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder along with Ben Upson. Infinite Sports. Have a good night, and we will see you next time.